How was hygiene in the Old West 150 years ago? Why? For generations, we've watched Hollywood westerns showing cowboys who looked rugged but clean, heroes who always seemed ready for a close-up. But what if that image is completely wrong? What did people actually smell like? How did entire families survive without running water, without soap as we know it, and without any concept of germs? What did they use to clean their bodies, their clothes, their teeth? And how did a simple lack of understanding about bacteria turn everyday life into a constant health gamble, where a small cut could mean death? When you truly step into the reality of Old West hygiene, you discover that daily life worked in such a different and shocking way that even the simplest details from historical accounts begin to carry a completely new meaning. Stay until the end, because what you'll discover goes beyond historical curiosity. It's a profound appreciation for the medical knowledge we take for granted today. The first shock when encountering someone from the Old West wouldn't come from what you saw, but from what you smelled. There was no masking it, no escaping it. The human body, unwashed for weeks or even months, produced an odor so intense it would make a modern person gag. This wasn't the smell of someone who skipped a shower. This was the accumulated stench of sweat, dirt, grease, and bacteria fermenting on skin that never saw soap. In summer, under the relentless sun, cowboys worked 12 to 14 hours a day. Sweat soaked through their clothes, mixed with dust from cattle drives, and created a paste that clung to their skin. At night, they simply lay down in the same clothes, on the same blankets, and slept. The smell intensified day after day. In winter, things got worse. Bathing in freezing temperatures was genuinely dangerous. Hypothermia killed. So people went months without removing their clothes, let alone washing their bodies. Layers of wool and cotton trapped sweat, dead skin cells, and oils. The fabric itself became a breeding ground for bacteria and lice. Women faced the same reality, though society pretended otherwise. Long dresses with multiple layers, corsets, petticoats, all worn day after day without washing. The fabric absorbed menstrual blood, urine, sweat. There were no disposable pads, no tampons. Women used rags that were rinsed and reused, often without proper cleaning. The smell was overwhelming, but everyone lived with it because everyone smelled the same. It wasn't considered shameful. It was simply normal. Children grew up never knowing any different. The concept of daily bathing didn't exist. In fact, many doctors of the era actively warned against frequent bathing, claiming it weakened the body and opened pores to disease. This wasn't ignorance speaking. It was the medical consensus. When bathing did happen, it was a rare event. Once a month if you were fortunate. Once every few months for most. The process was arduous. Water had to be hauled from a well or river, heated over a fire in large pots, then poured into a metal tub. The entire family used the same water. Father first, then mother, then children in order of age. By the time the youngest child bathed, the water was gray, cold, and filled with the filth of everyone before them. But even this dirty water was precious. It was often saved and reused for laundry or cleaning floors. Nothing was wasted. Soap existed, but it wasn't the gentle, fragrant bars we know today. Homemade lye soap was harsh, caustic, and could burn skin if not properly diluted. It was made from animal fat and wood ash, a chemical reaction that produced something closer to industrial cleaner than body wash. This soap was used sparingly, primarily for laundry, not bathing. Many people never used soap on their bodies at all. They simply rinsed with water, if that. The result was a population covered in a permanent film of grime. Fingernails were black with embedded dirt. Hair was greasy, matted, and often infested with lice. Scalps itched constantly. Head lice were so common that special combs were a standard household item. Mothers would sit their children down and methodically comb through their hair, crushing lice between their fingernails. The popping sound was familiar to every child. Dental hygiene was virtually non-existent. Toothbrushes were rare and expensive. Most people never owned one in their entire lives. Instead, they might chew on twigs to clean their teeth, or rub them with a cloth dipped in salt or baking soda. Many did nothing at all. By age 30, it was common to have multiple missing teeth. By 40, many people had lost most of their teeth entirely. Tooth decay wasn't just cosmetic. It was agonizing. Abscesses formed, infections spread, and without antibiotics, a bad tooth could kill you. Dentistry was primitive and brutal. Extractions were done without anesthesia, often by the local blacksmith using pliers designed for horseshoes. The pain was excruciating, but it was better than the alternative, a spreading infection that could reach your brain or heart. Breath was universally foul. Rotting teeth, gum disease, and poor digestion created a smell that would make modern people recoil. But in the Old West, it was just another layer in the overall assault on the senses. Laundry was back-breaking labor, done infrequently because of the sheer effort required. Clothes were worn until they were visibly filthy or stiff with dried sweat. Then maybe they were washed. The process took an entire day. Water was hauled and heated. Clothes were scrubbed by hand on washboards, a task that left knuckles raw and bleeding. Lye soap was used, strong enough to break down grease, but harsh enough to damage fabric. After scrubbing, clothes were rinsed, wrung out by hand, and hung to dry. In winter, they froze solid on the line. The effort was so immense that most families only did laundry once every few weeks, sometimes once a month. Undergarments were worn for days or weeks straight. Socks were reused until they could stand up on their own. Shirts and pants were aired out and worn again. The concept of changing clothes daily was unthinkable. Most people owned only 2 or 3 outfits total, one to wear, one to wash, and maybe one for special occasions. When clothes wore out, they were patched, repaired, and patched again until they literally fell apart. Toilets, as we know them, didn't exist. Outhouses were the standard, small wooden shacks built over a pit dug into the ground. Inside, a wooden bench with a hole cut in it. No running water, no flush, no ventilation beyond a crescent moon carved in the door. The smell was overpowering, especially in summer when heat intensified the stench of human waste decomposing below. Flies swarmed constantly, landing on waste and then on food, spreading disease with every touch. Toilet paper didn't exist for most people. Instead, they used corn cobs, leaves, old newspaper, or catalog pages. The Sears catalog was particularly popular for this purpose, its thin pages serving a dual function. Wealthier families might have actual toilet paper, but it was rough, unbleached, and nothing like the soft rolls we use today. After using the outhouse, people didn't wash their hands.
There was no sink, no soap, no understanding that invisible bacteria on their hands could cause illness. They simply returned to cooking, eating, and living. Fecal contamination was everywhere, on hands, on food, on surfaces. Dysentery, cholera, and typhoid spread easily, killing thousands.
Women faced additional hygiene challenges that were rarely discussed but universally endured. Menstruation meant using cloth rags pinned inside undergarments. These rags were rinsed in cold water and reused month after month. Proper sterilization was impossible. Infections were common. Childbirth was even more dangerous. Midwives and doctors didn't wash their hands or sterilize instruments. They went from patient to patient, from handling corpses to delivering babies, carrying bacteria with them. Puerperal fever, an infection caused by unwashed hands, killed countless new mothers. The tragedy was that it was entirely preventable, but the medical community didn't understand germ theory yet. Doctors actually mocked the idea that washing hands could save lives. When Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis suggested it in the 1840s, he was ridiculed and eventually committed to an asylum. It would take decades before hand washing became standard medical practice. The lack of hygiene created a constant cycle of illness. Skin infections were universal. Boils, abscesses, rashes, and sores covered bodies that never got properly clean. Lice, fleas, and bedbugs were constant companions. Beds were infested. Mattresses were stuffed with straw that harbored insects and rodents. Scratching was constant. Open sores from scratching became infected. Without antibiotics, simple infections could turn deadly. A small cut from barbed wire, a blister from new boots, a scraped knuckle, any of these could become infected, turn gangrenous, and require amputation or cause death. People lived with chronic pain and discomfort that we can barely imagine today. Headaches, toothaches, infected wounds, parasitic infestations, all were simply part of life. There was no relief, no cure, just endurance. Yet within this harsh reality, there were attempts at cleanliness, small rituals that showed people cared even when circumstances made true hygiene impossible. Some cowboys carried a small piece of soap in their saddlebags and would wash their face and hands when they came across a stream. Women tried to keep their homes as clean as possible, sweeping dirt floors daily, airing out blankets, washing dishes in heated water. These efforts made little difference in the overall picture, but they mattered psychologically. They were acts of dignity in undignified circumstances. Barbers offered more than haircuts. A visit to the barber meant a shave with a straight razor, a face wash with hot towels, sometimes even a tooth pulling if needed. It was a moment of grooming, of feeling human again, even if the effect lasted only hours before dust and sweat returned. Saloons, despite their rough reputation, often had wash basins near the entrance. Men would rinse their hands and faces before drinking, a small gesture toward civilization. Some establishments even provided towels, though these were shared by dozens of men and rarely washed. Hotels in larger towns advertised baths as a luxury amenity. For a fee, you could have a hot bath drawn in a private room. Traveling salesmen and wealthy ranchers took advantage of this, but for the average cowboy or settler, it remained an unaffordable luxury. The contrast between rich and poor wasn't just in comfort, it was in health outcomes. Wealthier families could afford better soap, more changes of clothes, and access to the rare doctors who understood emerging hygiene practices. Poor families suffered and died from preventable diseases at much higher rates. This wasn't just discomfort, it was a genuine public health crisis that nobody recognized as such. Infant mortality was staggering. 1 in 3 children died before age 5, many from diseases directly linked to poor hygiene. Diarrheal diseases, respiratory infections, skin conditions that became septic. Mothers buried child after child, never understanding that boiling water or washing hands could have saved them. The knowledge existed in some medical circles, but it hadn't reached the frontier. And even when it did, the practical barriers remained. How do you boil water when fuel is scarce? How do you wash hands frequently when water must be carried a mile from the nearest well? How do you change clothes daily when you own only 2 shirts? The gap between knowledge and practice was vast. To conclude, reflect on this. When we look back at the Old West, we're not just studying history. We're witnessing a time when humanity lived without understanding the invisible world of bacteria and viruses that shaped every aspect of daily life. The smell, the disease, the constant discomfort, these weren't moral failures. They were the inevitable result of limited resources and limited knowledge. It's in this context that modern hygiene gains profound meaning. Every time you wash your hands with soap, you're participating in one of the greatest public health advances in human history. Every shower, every load of laundry, every visit to the dentist represents knowledge that was bought with the suffering of previous generations. Understanding this reality changes how we read historical accounts, because it reveals a humanity that endured incredible hardship with remarkable resilience. They weren't dirty because they didn't care. They were dirty because survival itself demanded all their energy, and cleanliness was a luxury they couldn't afford. And if this documentary has given you a new appreciation for modern sanitation and medical knowledge, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Your support allows more people to discover the historical reality that makes us grateful for the present and strengthens our daily awareness of how far we've come. Until the next video.